Hello, welcome to the Self-Learning Podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Unit 26, Reliability, Validity and Triangulation. And our topic is Field Research as a Validity Check. The very nature of field work is its flexibility and openness, which can enable you to study your data in a variety of ways. In a field situation, routine contact with people on a day-to-day basis over the extended period of time will help you to test your emerging hypothesis. This method is very sensitive to discrepancies between meanings presumed by investigations and those understood by the target population. The field is a zone controlled by those investigated rather than the investigator. The researcher is at the mercy of his subjects and not vice versa as in a controlled experiment. The more disciplined your engagement with the field and the greater your receptivity to the different, sometimes contradictory inputs you receive, the greater are the chances of your data having validity. The process of communicative validation process involves taking the subject or actor into confidence and involving them in the research process so that you are able to ensure that what you have understood is actually what they meant. By showing your interviewees and the transcriptions of your first interview with them, you can ask them to judge whether you have accurately reported what they said or felt. The danger is, of course, that they may later deny saying this, which they may perceive as showing them in a bad light. Your ability as a researcher is then called into play. You have to separate the real response from the released one. Now let us move to the next point, method appropriate criteria. Are the criteria of reliability and validity adequate or appropriate to evaluate qualitative data? A number of social scientists have opined that these criteria, if applied alone, fail to understand the basic nature of qualitative research. They have attempted to evolve more method-appropriate criteria that enable a researcher to look critically at his data. We shall briefly present the formulation of Lincoln and Gaba, who have included in their scheme such criteria as trustworthiness, credibility, dependability, transferability, and confirmability. Let us discuss only the first two criteria, namely trustworthiness and credibility, as these two are most crucial in Lincoln and Gaba scheme. They suggest the following measures to increase the credibility. The first one is prolonged engagement and persistent observation. Prolonged engagement refers to the amount of time spent by the researcher in the field. It enables the researcher to learn about the culture of a social setting over an extended period of time and to build a relationship of trust and establish rapport with respondents. If the investigator spends a very limited time in the field, then distortions are likely to come. If research is being conducted in a residential school setting, the field workers will find the month before the summer break a very atypical one, as students and teachers are under tremendous pressure due to examination, evaluation, and declaration of results. By observing just this 1 month in the life of the school, the researcher would get a very distorted picture. However, if he does not observe the activities of this month, then he would not understand the totality of this social setting. Other distortions include those brought in by the researcher's own biases. For example, he or she may only listen to the views of those teachers whose views match his or her own world view. Some respondents may deliberately want to please the investigator or even to confuse or deceive him or her. Prolonged engagement helps the researcher to sift fact from fiction. As a further measure, Lincoln and Gaba recommend triangulation of the different methods, researchers, and data. The next one is peer debriefing. This refers to regular meetings with other people who are not involved in the research in order to discuss findings, hypotheses, and results and gain their insights as well. It is important that the debriefer should be a peer and not an authority figure. For example, a professor in one's department. In order to prevent views being imposed, friends and colleagues are ideal debriefers. The researcher studying the residential school may have as a debriefer a friend who also is a parent of a school-going child. The debriefer would then be able to understand, challenge, and contribute to the findings of the researcher by introducing a parent's perspective. The third one is member checking. According to Lincoln and Gaba, this technique is the most important in establishing credibility. It refers to the process by which members of stakeholding groups are allowed to test the categories, interpretations, and conclusions. They thus have a chance of recognizing whether the investigator has imposed his constructions upon them or whether their views have been adequately expressed. Member checking is basically communicative validation referred to in the previous section on validity. The fourth one is maintaining a reflexive journal. According to Lincoln and Gaba, a reflexive journal is a kind of diary in which the investigator records information about herself or himself on a regular basis. It provides information about the researcher's schedule, methods, and insights, and provides a valuable guide to understanding the direction the research process takes. The next one is analysis of negative cases in the sense of analytic induction. Analytic induction refers to the process by which a hypothesis formulated to understand a phenomena is applied to a specific case. If it does not fit the case, then it is reformulated and applied again. Each individual negative case helps to further refine the hypothesis. Further cases are studied until the stage arrives when a universal relationship is established. Hence, each negative case calls for redefinition or reformulation of the problem, thereby enhancing credibility. To check the dependability of the research, the concept of auditing is used based on the procedure of audits in the field of finance. Briefly, the auditing trail that has to be checked includes the raw data, their collection and recording, data reduction, that is summaries, short descriptions of cases, memos, etc. The reconstruction of data into themes, definitions and relationship, and the findings inferred from them. Process notes and decisions regarding methods. Personal notes about one's intentions, one's idea about research and expectations of the participants, and the pilot study and preliminary plans of the research. The auditing trails helps to account for the manner in which the research was conducted and its outcome. As said previously, qualitative research includes the subjectivity of the researcher, and yet it is ultimately judged in terms of its objectivity, that is, its ability to bring to the forefront the lives, experiences, and relationship of people. Unlike other scientists, qualitative researchers do not report on studied objects. Rather, they report on their interaction with the objects they study, namely cultures. That is why objectivity is difficult and yet essential according to Kirk and Miller. In this context, the views of Harvey Sachs may be cited. Sachs believes that the serious work includes paying attention to details, and if something matters, it should be observable. For Sachs, observations study meant observing the activities that members of a society did, rather than speculating about their motives and inner thoughts. We will now look at the use of multiple methods in sociology. It is also referred as triangulation or methodological pluralism. But we will go to the topic of triangulation in our next session. Now let us wind up the session and take rest. Thank you very much for engaging yourself with the Self-Learning podcast.